This is the 5-Minute Bible Talk with Reverend Kathy. As I was thinking of what story I wanted to present this week, I'm reminded that next week is our national elections. And there's a lot of energy and emotions that are close to the surface and trepidation of the unknown of what it's going to look like next week. So I thought the perfect story would be from Mark 4:35 through 42, Jesus calming the storm. And it goes like this. That morning, Jesus and the disciples went down to the edge of the Lake of Galilee, which is a big lake, 12.5 miles by 7.5 miles across, and began to teach. And as the crowds came, they kept pushing Jesus closer and closer to the water's edge. So he finally just got in a boat that pushed off a little bit, and he taught from the boat. Well, as evening came, he turned to the disciples and said, "Let's leave the crowds and let's just go to the other side." And so they pushed off and they began the sail. Jesus, having taught all day, went to the back of the boat and fell asleep on a cushion. And while he was asleep, a great windstorm arose, and the waves battered the side of the boat and began to swamp. And the disciples, afraid, went to Jesus and woke him up and said, "Teacher, do you not care that we might be perishing?" And Jesus woke up and he stood up and he looked at what was going on, and he rebuked the wind and said, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased and the waves calmed. And he turned to the disciples and said, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And the disciples turned to one another in awe of this person who could calm the wind and the seas. In this story, we're reminded that Jesus represents the Christ mind within us, our higher self, our God source. And the disciples represent those attributes of that divine mind, like light coming through a prism that disperses the light. The Christ mind is composed of these spiritual powers, these spiritual attributes of faith and love, life, understanding, wisdom, strength, imagination, and more. And in this story, we realize that within us, the Christ mind and these attributes, that when we are filled with emotions and the stormy waves within us, especially about what's going on in the world today, that if our spiritual powers are not well grounded in our Christ, in our divine nature, then they begin to take their stimuli, their information from the outer, from the 5 senses, which aren't always reliable. And we begin to feel the stormy weather within us, this feeling of uncertainty and trepidation and emotional upset. But when we remember to turn within and to connect to our Christ self, we have the power then to wake up and to say, "Peace, be still. Peace, be still." And those things from the outer begin to diminish and cease and have no power over us. So this week, our work is to move from our human understanding of faith and strength and wisdom and understanding that swirl around us through the current news cycle, and to ground ourselves in our Christ truth, that we have the power to calm the storm within us and to walk through with faith and with love and with trust that a higher power is at work here. And so I invite you to use that mantra, "Peace, be still," this week as you walk through your daily life, and to know that you have the power through the Christ within you. You have the power to calm the storms. Blessing.